Hi guys, welcome to another TMDSAS office hour for this afternoon. My name is Suleima and I am the TMDSAS Support Coordinator. On behalf of everyone else on the team, we just want to wish you guys good luck on the journey that we've had so far in the cycle. I know that at this point in the time of the cycle, it can be very hectic, very stressful. And so, if you're new to this office hour session, office hours are just hosted mainly as another avenue for applicants to get answers to their questions, provide an additional support for you all, and any kind of reassurance that we can provide. And it's just like any other office hours that you would attend with professors at your institution, whether it be your undergrad or graduate institution. So yeah, we're here until however long you need the support and for us to answer your questions. I did want to invite you guys to also go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. This is so that you are notified of um, any upcoming office hours that are coming up and scheduled, any other sessions that we have with our member institutions, such as school panels or any kind of application walkthroughs or any other hot topic that they can address for us. Additionally, we recently started a new series called Busting Myths About, and I'm really excited about that one just because I know that with a lot of information out there, it's so easy to get caught up and rumors and other kind of mentions and suggestions and whatnot, things of what to do, what not to do during this time in the application cycle. And sometimes that might not be true. So, in our Busting Myths application series, sorry about that, it basically is hosted for us to have the connections that we have to, for example, the TMDSA's director, Enrique Hasso, who we had last week join us for a session. And we also had Dr. Kellaway from the Long School of Medicine join us for a myth busting series session on activities. And so you can find those all on the Texas Health Education Service YouTube channel, which is the page where you found us. So I'll go ahead and just get started with answering any of y'all's questions. Again, I'm here as long as y'all need me to. It can be for 20, 30 minutes or up to an hour, however long it's needed. And if you have any questions, just drop them down below. First, I do want to go ahead and show you guys where you can get the most updated information on processing times. This is for both your letters of evaluation and your primary Team DSAS application. So if you go to www.tmdsas.com, um, you will land on our TMDSAS homepage. On the right-hand side, we have our processing times, again, for letters of evaluation submitted via Interfolio, direct uploads, and as well as the processing times for applications. So just be on the lookout for that. That information is updated daily, so you'll know that you'll be looking at the correct and accurate timelines below. All right, so I see we have a couple or a question so far. All right, so Christopher was our first brave person to ask a question here. Is the data report available? I checked for dental school and the link does not work. Great question. So for those of you who do not know, TMDSAS has a metrics dashboard that provides insight as to um, medical, dental, and veterinary applications from previous cycle trends and that statistics information, GPAs, test scores, um, and other kinds of information that might be useful in kind of figuring out whether you would have what it takes to be able to land in the metrics area that you would like to be located in and viewed in as a competitive applicant. Right now, those dashboards are being updated so that we have accurate information to show with the rest of the pre-health or health professions community. So that's why those links are not working right now. So if you see a not found error page or message, when you have these, or when you locate them on our website, don't worry, those will be available once that information is updated. So just be on the lookout, because we have been getting this question a lot, especially from pre-health advisors from the undergrad institutions. I believe we'll make an announcement when those are available again, but just be on the lookout for that on our website. All right. If I decide to reapply next cycle, does everything save, or do I have to fill out everything again and the letters of recommendations? Great question. We get this a lot with applicants who are uncertain if this is a cycle for them. And if they got started on their application, as you know, it is very lengthy. And so sometimes just having the thought that you'd have to start over can be overwhelming. Um, so know we have a page in the application guide that kind of gives you information that will not roll over. Luckily for you, the section that is the biggest and lengthiest and most tedious is the coursework section that does roll over. So once you put that information in, if you start your application next year, then at that point, when you started, that information will roll over. But if you want to know what other sections will and will not roll over, I will send you the link here in the chat. And the thing is, with reapplicants, you are more than welcome to submit the same letters of evaluation. For example, if you had an evaluator who wrote a letter for you, let's say in July of this year, and you decide maybe this is not the cycle for you, you want to go ahead and start next year, you can have them again as an evaluator. They could even potentially use the same letter if you don't want to bug them, if they don't want you to bug them with another letter that they have to write, and information has stayed the same, they can go ahead and re-upload that for you. However, you will have to have them re-uploaded because TMDSAS does not keep those in file after the cycle is over. And so while they technically could still use a letter, again, and if there's nothing else that they need to add, nothing else that has changed, and the date is after for next year, May of 2023, then that letter should be fine to use again. However, they will have to re-upload it. And in the chat, I went ahead and listed the link to the section in the reapplicant history that tells you what information will and will not roll over. So I hope I answered your question. And just to point out, another part of this section of the reapplicant history, a lot of times the being labeled as a reapplicant can sound very scary, and I know that can be an area of confusion for a lot of our applicants. So being a reapplicant is not necessarily a bad thing if you're planning on resubmitting in another cycle. The reason for that is that the schools have let us know that they will review your application exactly the same as it was someone else's application for the first time. They understand that for a lot of people, the first time is not always going to be the one to get you into medical school. So that's okay. In the applicant history page, there is a section about being a reapplicant. In that description box, you are allowed to let the schools know what you've done to improve your application from the previous cycles. So we highly, highly recommend that applicants take advantage of that opportunity to explain to the schools what they've done, whether that's been shadowing more, or being more involved in your community, studying for another MCAT or DAT exam, whatever the case may be, or a post-bac program. You can list all of that in there to let the schools know what you've done to improve your application from one cycle to the other. So if you're considering potentially reapplying for next year, or you're working right now on your application and you have reapplied because you previously applied to another previous cycle, don't miss out on that section because that would be very, very important for the schools to know. All right. We have another follow-up question from Christopher. If I submit my application today, how long will it take to be processed since we are in the peak of the cycle? Great question. That is actually the most trending question that we have every single day from applicants, whether it be via message, email, or phones. So the peak of the application cycle is typically July, and the reason we say that is because most applicants will submit their application in June. For TMDCS, it could take up to 4 weeks to process an application. That means that the date that you submit approximate about 4 weeks from that date, and that'll tell you when you can expect to hear back on your application being sent to the school. So during those 4 weeks, the application is still in our office at TMDSAS. Our team is very, 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 very busy processing all the applications that were submitted, and they process the applications that were submitted per day. So in any given day, we could have 100 applications submitted. We could have had 200 applications. We could have had two. We could have had 30. It just kind of depends. But we do know that based on the trends from previous cycles, most applicants will apply and submit their application in June. And so if you count 4 weeks, that leads to July. So right now in July is when we have most of the applicants reach out to see when their application will finally be sent to the schools. And like I mentioned previously, if you go to www.tmdsas.com, our teams do update the information that is listed there for processing times on letters and your primary application. So you will know exactly what day our team is processing applications submitted on your specific date. So to answer your question, if you submit your application today, let's count about 4 weeks from today. And let me go ahead and pull up my calendar. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can expect to hear back on your application being processed if everything goes well and smoothly, and there's no delay on. Hopefully, you didn't put all your courses under one term, and hopefully, you did enter your spring 2023 grades in your application. Um, Hopefully, you don't have any residency documents that you haven't uploaded or you've been notified and you still haven't uploaded them, or whatever the reason might be. Those are some of the reasons why an application could be delayed in processing. But if that is taken out of the equation, we count 4 weeks. It looks like if you submit today, you can expect to hear back on your application being processed and sent to the schools around August 24th or around that time. So, again, it also just depends on how many applications were submitted on today's date, and that'll give you a rough idea of when to expect to hear back. Typically, whenever your application is transmitted, you will receive an IM or an instant message in your TMDSAS application portal, letting you know that your application has been processed and sent to the schools. So as we get closer to that date and you check tmdsas.com and you see that our team is on application submitted on July 27th, then at that point, just be on the lookout for any messages that you may receive in your portal. Okay. So hi, thank you so much for this. May you please share advice for a current student interested in transferring to a medical school? All right. So it sounds like you are currently um, a student in medical school. If I'm understanding your question correctly, if not, correct me. Let me know. Let's see. If you're already in medical school, so you actually wouldn't use our application service. For TMDSAS, we are the standardized application service for first year entering students into any of our dental, medical, podiatry, or veterinary member institutions in the state of Texas. So if you are already at a medical school in another state and would like to transfer to one of our lovely Texas medical schools, then I recommend that you reach out to the medical school that you're interested in transferring to. So I can give you the contact information that has all of our member institutions info on this page, so that way you can reach out to them and see what steps you need to take in order to transfer. All right, so next question is from Life with is it Louise? I submitted my application while I was awaiting my MCAT score. I just got this score and I have to retake my MCAT. Do I have to send my first MCAT score, or can I take my second attempt and send that score instead? Okay, so the way to think about this is that regardless, the schools are going to receive all of your scores. So even if you don't really like your first score and you will retake your second attempt and then say that that score is significantly higher, then the schools will be receiving both of those scores whenever you release your scores to TMDSAS, and we receive the scores and it becomes available to the schools. So because you have to fill out that section before you submit, um, I am assuming that you did enter the first attempt test date. And so all you'll have to do is go into your MCAT page, go to the bottom section that says MCAT's planned, and enter the new date of your second attempt. That way, the schools, even if you haven't yet released your first MCAT attempt score, at least the schools, once they receive your application, will know that you plan on retaking your MCAT. That way, they can expect it on their end once that becomes available. And that way, they know that you are retaking it. You already took it, but you're going to retake it for potentially a better grade. Sorry, better score. And so, yeah, that is just the best way to communicate with the schools that you are planning on retaking it. And I see you did list a follow up to that. I submitted the second attempt test date just in case while I was applying. Okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah, so if you've already done that, great. Yeah, it looks like you already released your scores to Team DSAS. And then once those are released, then in about 36 hours or so, you can always go back into your status page and check for the status of those test scores. In that status page, it'll have the test dates, and the column right next to it will say date received. And so if there's a date received, that means that the scores have been uploaded to your application and available to the schools. So I hope that, yeah, helps with your question. Yeah, no problem. So I know that that can be very frightening. Sometimes first attempt isn't the best. And so understandably, retakes are allowed. Remember that the last MCAT test date that the schools will accept for this application cycle will be for the last MCAT test date, which is September 9th. And speaking of test scores, just to be sure that you guys are on top of that, sometimes whenever you um, have released your score and it hasn't been shown as received on your status page, it could be because of, well, one, maybe you didn't release your score. So just make sure that you do go into your ADA account or your AAMC account to make sure that you did release the scores. And then the next thing would be to look at three components in your application and in your account. So take a look at your test dates. Make sure that those are accurate both on your account and your TMDSAS application. Make sure that your date of birth is correct on both of these ends. So in your test test account and in your application. Um, Believe it or not, sometimes there are mistakes made when entering a date of birth. It could be maybe you press the wrong number next to the key number that you meant to enter. Sometimes, I know for some applicants, the month and dates are reversed. So just be on the lookout for that. And also just make sure that your DE&T PIN and or your ADA ID number are correct on both your account and your application. Those numbers are pretty long. Those are about 8 digits um, worth. So it can be easy to type an incorrect number. So just make sure that you look out for those three areas to make sure that your scores were released properly to ensure that it is matched to your application. So if your score has not been received, here is a link to the guidance that we have with scores not being released or received. And again, it's the information that I just mentioned, but it'll be listed there for you if you need to reference it at a later time. Okay. So would it be okay to just send the second score instead? I know all scores will be shown anyways, but I don't really want to send my first attempt score as of right now, but I wasn't sure if I had to send the test scores twice. Okay, I think what you're asking is, can you send your scores once you get your second attempt? Yeah. Um, so yeah, you can do it that way if you would like as well. Um, like you mentioned, either way, they're going to get both of those score attempts. So if you don't release it with your first score right now and wait until your second one, I believe that should be fine. Another thing to consider is that some schools may go ahead and review what you have. I believe Long School of Medicine does this, but if I'm wrong, you can always check out the Busting Myths series session that we had with Dr. Kellaway just to be sure. And she does mention things about the letters and scores. So definitely check that out if you're applying to Long School of Medicine, just to see if that is accurate. But I do know that other schools either wait for all your scores to be submitted, will go ahead and review your application if you have one score, but you have another one pending, or they will wait to review until you have all scores. It just kind of depends on the school's end. So, if you have any questions about that, you can always reach out to the schools. We do have the contact page linked below as well in the chat if you need to reference that to contact the schools and find out how they review the applications on their end. And yeah, no problem. I'm glad that was helpful. Hopefully not scary or stressful, but just shedding a little bit of light on what your options are. A lot of times I feel like applicants don't feel like they have options or they feel like they're restricted in what they can do. Um, but fear not, like you have questions. There's ways to navigate this. It's not as scary as it seems. Okay, sorry about that. Usman, I've left out your question. Thank you for letting me know. All right, let me go back up to your question because I did find it now. If I submit my application next month, would September, October be too late since it takes 4 weeks? Great question. This is another question that we get a lot. So as Enrique had mentioned in our busting myths about the TMDSAS application and processing, so highly recommend that you take a look at that after this session to get more clarifying questions as he does go in depth about the cycle, the trend, everyone submits early and then it starts to trickle down a little bit, what that means for your interview spots, your window of opportunity is here, and then it starts to shrink a little bit as you get closer to the deadline. However, the if you submit by November 1st, it is still on time because you submitted before the deadline. So, in your specific case, if you submit your application next month, with September, October be too late. So it wouldn't be too late. If you submit in August, yeah, about 4 weeks, you can expect your application to be sent to the schools in September. um, maybe late September, depending on when you submit your application in August, but definitely in September. Again, that is still on time. It'll still be considered and reviewed for this cycle. Just know that especially if you're a medical applicant, interview invitations do go out and start August 1st. So in a couple of days, the interview slots will be open for applicants to start receiving invitations for an interview. So the later you submit your application in the cycle, that window of opportunity for interviews gets shorter and shorter, just because they already start sending out those invites. Slots start to fill up, and so that's just something to consider. That while yes, your application will still be on time and it's not considered late, it will still be accepted. It'll still be reviewed. Just know that the later in the cycle that you submit, the smaller amount of interview spots are available. So it can feel like it could be a little bit competitive at that point. So just be mindful of that. However, you do want to be mindful that you don't just submit it in a rush, and that you do submit the best quality version of your application as possible. So again, highly, highly recommend that you watch that session with Enrique from last week, and I can go ahead and link it. Let me find. And Enrique, our Team DSAS director, has been in this for more years than I have, so he definitely has um, a variety of insights and information to provide. He did provide that for us in the session last week, so definitely highly, highly recommend that you check it out as well. Okay, question from Andreas. When do interview invites for dental schools start being sent? Great question. Let me pull up our um, deadlines page on our website just to make sure. Looks like we don't have that information, but you can definitely check out the dental school's websites, get in contact with them just to see what their um, timeline looks like for interviews. However, I do know that they begin to extend offers of acceptance. Um, they start doing that as of December 15th. So, yeah, I want to say that they have a similar timeline like the medical schools and start interviewing in August and moving forward, since their offers of acceptances start going out December 15th. But just to be sure, since we don't have that information on our timelines, deadlines, and timelines, feel free to reach out to the schools or check out their websites to confirm that information. Okay. If I submit my application before taking my DAT, would y'all still send it to dental schools or wait until the DAT score to send it? No. So the thing is with TMDSAS, our primary application, letters, and scores are all processed separately. They do not interfere with either process. So not having your scores we will if you don't have your scores, that will not prevent you from getting your application sent. We will go ahead and send it out to the schools. So if you, as long as you have listed on there that the date that you plan on taking your DAT, you get it submitted. Takes about 4 weeks. It gets sent out to the schools, and at that point, you will have received your score. Then that's whenever the schools will be able to see the score as soon as it's received on the application. So no, you don't have to wait for that in order to submit. Just like you don't have to wait for your letters all to be submitted in order to submit your primary application, you can just go ahead and submit it without those components. And the reason for that is because TMDCS, we don't want you to wait on those items. And again, remember how the later in the cycle you submit, the smaller your interview slots window shortens. We don't want you to hold back on submitting your primary application and be considered because you're waiting on those components. And so the application itself will be processed and sent out to schools with what you have. And once the score is received, let's say at that point the schools do have your application, they will be notified immediately that that new information is available to them to download on their end. Um, so once so we get these questions a lot about the difference between applying early or applying too late. I do like to point our applicants to this video. And so in this video, they talk about the application timeline, um, the processing time that it takes, the interview slots window that I kept mentioning throughout this session. So all that information was taken from the video that I learned from how this works, what this timeline looks like. And so if you're curious to see how that looks like with a visual, which is highly recommended, then you can go and watch this video. It's pretty short, it's actually a minute. So it's very digestible and easy to understand, just to get an idea of what the application cycle looks like um, from when you submit in May, when you submit in July, and if you submit on November 1st. Alrighty, guys. Well, these have been great questions so far. Thank you all so much for participating, for engaging, for asking your questions, because like you, many other applicants have the exact same question as you. And so this provides all applicants to be able to get information that they need. So if we don't have any other questions, I will go ahead and let you guys all go. Remember that if you do have any follow-up questions, you can always send us a message in your TMDSAS application portal. This is actually the best way to communicate with TMDSAS and get answers to your questions. Because anytime you send a message, it is directly connected to your application. So our team has the ability to take a look at your application if needed. Yeah, if you don't have any other questions, we'll go ahead and end the session. And remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel to be on the lookout for new notifications of new office hours that will be available in the month of August. So I'll see you guys later. Bye, everyone.